This is Teofimo Lopez, the next big thing in boxing, The Takeover, and you're listening to the Ringside Boxing Show.
Live from Monterey on California's beautiful Central Coast, this is the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor, welcoming you to join me and my expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti, today and every week for the hottest, sweatiest show on the West Coast. And now, from Studio 1A, it's the Ringside Boxing Show. Welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and we got a whole bunch of great stuff coming your way today. In a short time, John Raspanti and I are going to be talking to one of the greatest fighters of the 1970s, a bona fide boxing legend, who in 2004 was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. Carlos Palomino, King Carlos, fought Roberto Duran, Wilfredo Rivera, Dave Boy Green, Armando Munez, Hedgeman Lewis, Wilfredo Rivera, many others, and reigned as the WBC welterweight champion of the world for more than 2.5 years. We're going to be talking to Carlos about his life, his career, and what he thinks of the modern boxing scene, too. So stay tuned for that. He's been on this show 3 or 4 times before, and he is always outstanding. Our British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin, also is with us this week to talk to us about the latest news from the United Kingdom, including Tyson Fury going into professional wrestling. And we'll kick it off, as we do every week, with a look at recent events with our expert analyst. Travis Hartman's a professional boxer, trainer, and promoter from Osborne, Missouri, now living and training in Orlando, Florida. Rizwaan Zahid, a boxing journalist from Toronto. John J. Raspanti is chief lead writer for MaxBoxing.com and DogHouseBoxing.com. And John and I are co-authors of Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy, an Amazon bestseller. Guys, we got some horrible news this morning. We want to open the day with the what we heard about Eloy, the Prince Perez, who became the WBO's #1 ranked super featherweight in the world, with Garcia Boxing, our Salinas crew, a few years back. He is dead at age 32, possibly a suicide. We're also hearing it's possibly foul play. Eloy was 23-0 when he went to St. Louis and got knocked out by Adrian Broner. Travis and I were there that night. Right afterwards, he tested positive for cocaine. The Garcias, who are a straight-edge family, as you'll ever want to find, told him he needed to check into rehab and get clean or find another boxing situation. They weren't going to be enablers. Eloy chose cocaine instead, and not long afterwards, he got deported to Mexico. It turns out that this kid, who had gone all the way through school in Washington State, where he had become a superstar high school running back, by the way, a lot of college offers, he was undocumented all his life. So I think he spent a couple of years alone in Mexico, where he had never been before, didn't speak any Spanish at all. When he finally got back to the U.S. somehow, he trained for a short time with somebody up in Hollister, California, but that didn't last. So now there are we're hearing rumors that are unconfirmed right now that this might have been a suicide. Also rumors that there might have been some form of foul play, but whatever the case, Eloy, the Prince Perez, who was a sweetheart of a kid and a fabulous boxer, he's gone at age 32, and that's heartbreaking. Travis, you saw him fight. What did you think of this kid?
Yeah, he was a really hard-nosed, tough kid. I mean, he went down to St. Louis, Missouri, and brought everything he could to Adrian Broner. And we have to remember at the time, this is when Adrian Broner was, I think, 135 pounds, maybe even 130. So Adrian Broner was a beast at that weight. And that's it. I remember that was the first time, Dennis, that I saw Adrian Broner live. And I was like, oh, my gosh. Like, this guy is a big guy for this weight class. He hits incredibly hard. So, Eloy just ran up against the guy at the time at 135. Broner was undefeated still. Very, very confident, very, very big for that weight class, and Eloy gave it all he could. And I remember there was a little bit of a scuffle, I think, at the weigh-in for that fight as well. Yeah. So I think
Broner strangled him.
And grabbed him by the throat. Or something happened, but I mean, I'd only briefly really met Eloy in their camp like that night, so I couldn't really tell you everything about the kid. Obviously, Dennis, you were probably closer to that camp and those people, especially with that fight, because you covered them quite a bit leading up to that. which was awesome, man. The kid got to fight on HBO, against Adrian Broner. That's a big deal. I mean, not a lot of people get to fight on HBO, and he got that chance, and which goes to show you he was probably a hard worker. I mean, coming from the Garcias and that whole family, this kid worked hard, and then he earned that opportunity. So, I mean, it's sad. It's also sad, Dennis, that we have another boxer, that Patrick Day from last night on DAZN. He was hurt and rushed to the hospital, and I heard he had emergency brain surgery and is in a coma right now.
Oh, man.
So we have the boxing world right now definitely could use a lot of prayers. So, I mean, that's confirmed that Patrick Day was in a coma as of this morning from emergency brain surgery after his fight last night that he'd lost by, kind of a big KO.
John, you met Eloy.
Yes, I did. I covered a card in San Francisco. He was the headliner. Eloy was the headliner, and that was when Joe Gamina was fighting on the card too. And I went back up to the dressing room, a tiny little dressing room, and he had 4 or 5 people around him, but he spotted me and he knew what I was, and we had met briefly earlier before the fight, and he said, and I said, can I ask you a question real softly? And he said, come on over. And I was just very impressed at what a really, really nice kid he was. And I mean, it's always a tragedy no matter, but when somebody has that kind of, it's seemingly compassion, it just really breaks your heart when something like this happens. He obviously had a lot of demons. They took control of his life, and that happens, and it's really sad. And I watched him up close and personal in that fight, and he was a very good fighter. He was a very good defensive fighter. He liked to counter. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday, and that's what makes this kind of just shocking. And I was watching the Broner fight on television, and he just ran into somebody who was just better and bigger and stronger and hit harder and all those things. But that was the only fight the guy lost in his whole career, and it's just
this is his last fight.
That's right, and it's obviously it's very sad for boxing, but it's just a tragedy for a human being like this to die at such a young age, and however it happened, he's gone now, and it's just a real tragedy, and it just reminds you how quickly things can change in life and how they can end. And it's hard to believe that it's all over for him. I'm just shaking my head right now.
Yep. All right. Let's switch gears. Riz, there's obviously a lot of intrigue in the heavyweight division nowadays with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder and Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua rematch. But the real wild card in this division at this point is Oleksandr Usyk, who figures to give away 25 to 50 pounds if he fights any of those guys, but almost certainly is the most skilled of the bunch, I think. Usyk is a former cruiserweight champ. He weighed 215 pounds for his heavyweight debut on Saturday against Chazz Witherspoon, who was 38-3 with 29 knockouts, but has never really been a serious contender. How did Usyk look to you against Witherspoon, and what do you think his prospects are as a heavyweight?
It kind of looked as expected, to be honest. A lot of people thought he would, blow people away, but he's not. That's not the kind of fighter he is. He's never. I don't think I've ever seen him. Just even in his first 13 fights when he had 10 knockouts, I don't think any of them were early knockouts. I don't think he had like a first round knockout because that's not just the way he fights. But what I did notice, and I compared it to some of his other fights, his CompuBox numbers were significantly lower, like cut in half compared to when he fought Gassiev. Obviously, it's a different opponent. But he was also coming off the bicep surgery, and you could tell he was kind of shaking his arm and shaking his shoulder. He was almost metaphorically shaking the rust off. But Chazz Witherspoon is not anywhere remotely close to any of the talent that's at the elite guys in the heavyweight division. But I think I saw Usyk realizing that it's a lot, just because a guy is that large, he just has to do more. He has to move his feet more. He has to really be a little disciplined. He got caught with a right hand, I think, in probably the only punch that Witherspoon landed, and I think round 5 or something like that. And Usyk almost seemed disappointed in himself, and it's like, I can't do that. So I think Usyk, people looking at it last night, but I think he fights knowing what the end goal is, if that makes sense. He fought last night as if he was going to fight a Wilder or a Joshua and just try to and almost testing some things and seeing what else he can do. There was that moment when he had Witherspoon on the ropes and he backed off. because, he saw Witherspoon throw something back, and he kind of realized that, if Wilder or Joshua throws something back in that scenario and I get caught, boom, I'm out. And the other thing is he's also fighting with another 20 pounds on his body, which is probably something he's never done before, this is probably his natural weight class. And he probably loses 15 pounds to make cruiserweight, but you can tell it was different for him, and the opponent change didn't help. But it was interesting that I looked at against Gassiev, he was throwing about 70-80 punches around, and Usyk's cardio and work ethic is insane. But over here, even last night, he was only throwing about 45 or 50 around. And again, I think if he really wanted to, I'm sure he could go in there in the first round against Witherspoon, who hasn't probably thrown a punch in like 3 years, and just take him out. But I don't think that was a plan. I think he wanted to get rounds in. I think he wanted to see how he could carry the weight literally into round 6 and 7, because I think he realizes if he's going to beat Joshua or Wilder or any of those guys, it's not going to be by a blitzing knockout. It's going to be by a long-term, sustained damage throughout 12 rounds where he has to box and move and box and move. And if you see the common trend I've seen with guys who fight at their quote natural weight class is that they don't usually knock out any of their opponents. Mayweather, Pacquiao, or just two of the guys to mention there. Even Hopkins to an extent. When Hopkins at 175 was probably his natural weight. All those guys are winning on their boxing ability. They're not winning on trying to go in there and knock guys out. The guys who move up in weight and do so because they have power, they're not the guys who last at those divisions because they can't. Their knockout power isn't as sustainable when they're fighting bigger men. So Usyk, I think, understands. He knows how to adapt, and I think what we saw yesterday. I mean, it's really hard to. Even if he blew out Witherspoon in one round, I don't think we were going to learn anything else last night. I mean, Witherspoon is not going to be an indication of anything, and if anything, I just wanted to see how he actually carried the weight, how he moved his feet. Did it slow him down at all? His speed and all that was there. And I think it was a good first fight at heavyweight. I mean, not overwhelming, but I didn't really expect it to be. But I think what we know is it's pretty much Joshua, Wilder, or bust for Usyk. I mean, it doesn't, that's why he's already talking about fighting the winner of Joshua Ruiz, because there's no point in him fighting the B- guys. We know his boxing talent. We know his skill level. I mean, you got to remember, this is not someone who just decided to move up in weight. This is a guy who cleared out the cruiserweight division, unifying the titles and winning the world, the Super Six, and beating every single opponent on the road, which still to me is unheard of. I don't know any guy, forget beating guys on the road, a lot of guys just don't want to fight on the road. And Usyk has never had a problem with that. So there's no point of him fighting. I mean, the Witherspoon, it was a fill-in opponent, it was the debut, fine. I don't think, if he's not fighting one of the top 2 or 3 guys next, I think he's going to fight a top contender or a guy who's a real heavyweight. There's strong possibilities of Derek Chisora, maybe Joseph Parker, which I think is a great, I wouldn't say stepping stone, but the only problem with Joseph Parker is Parker's actually more similar in size to Usyk than any other heavyweights that we mentioned. So the problem with that is, I mean, then you're talking about skill, and Usyk we already know has higher skill compared to the rest of these guys. So in terms of, if it's only a 10, 15 pound weight difference, I think Usyk can handle it, Parker, no problem. But guys, the bigger guys are going to cause Usyk's problem. I don't think no one is more talented in the heavyweight division in terms of skill than Usyk right now. Sorry, you just can't argue that with me. His amateur pedigree and all that stuff is there, but we all know that's not what's going to, that will help him win. So that's not what it's going to make him lose. What's going to make him lose is if he gets caught with a shot from a real heavyweight fighter. And the funny thing about that, I mean, I think he's already kind of learned last night that the heavyweight's a different ball game. You don't have to have even quote unquote elite chins at heavyweights get cracked and knocked out all the time, because I don't care how great your chin is with the heavyweight division, unless you were George Chuvalo, everyone's getting knocked out in the heavyweight division because there's guys 250 pounds who are throwing shots. So it's definitely going to be an uphill climb for him. I'm just curious does he plan to add on more weight, or is he comfortable at his weight? I mean, he was 215, but he looked like a pretty solid 215 last night, and he still moved very well. But again, it's hard to say how much the weight disparity is going to be when he fights a guy like Joshua, or especially Joshua. Wilder at least is tall and rangy, but his weight is actually very similar to Usyk, where Joshua is coming in, 250, and Andy Ruiz, depending how many Mars bars is around him, might come in at 300. So it just depends. But it's going to be it's going to be an interesting climb for him, because it's a unique challenge for him as a heavyweight, because he's the most skilled out there, but that's not what the questions are about him at heavyweight. So I hope his next opponent is a real heavyweight, a true heavyweight who's been a contender over the last couple of years, because that will give us a better indication how he's handling the weight, and if how he handles the weight will indicate how you'll do against the top 2 or 3 guys in the division.
Hey, Dennis,
Travis, you were actually, I was going to say you were seeing him for the first time last.
Yeah, and I agree with your examples, Riz, about when the lighter guys like the Pacquiaos and the Mayweathers and even the Canelos move up in weight. It's the boxing ability that ultimately makes them really good in that heavier weight division. But the heavyweight division is different. I don't see Usyk and his boxing ability being a positive for the heavyweight division, especially nowadays. It's more like a super heavyweight division, because these guys are, 230, 240 minus Wilder, but Wilder makes up for that because Wilder hits like a rock. I mean, that guy just can punch out of this world. So I think Usyk is going to be in trouble, because I don't think he's going to be able to outbox these guys for 12 solid rounds and stick around in the heavyweight division by winning a boxing match. I mean, these heavyweights nowadays, I mean, how often do we see heavyweights go 12 rounds? Not very often. So the power does matter. And I agree that Usyk is one of the most talented boxing skill-wise guys, and that's why he's with Lomachenko's camp, and that makes sense because they're very, very technically sound fighters. And last night, honestly, he didn't really impress me. And I get it that, it was his first fight back and all of that, but his skill level and all of that, I don't see it holding up to a Deontay Wilder. I don't see it holding up to an Anthony Joshua. I don't see it even holding up to like a Luis Ortiz. I don't see him being big enough to be able to outbox and compete with those guys, because we know that just because you can box in the heavyweight division doesn't necessarily get you by. I mean, Chris Bird was probably one of the best phenomenally sound boxers in the heavyweight division, and every time he really stepped up, I mean, he was knocked out or he was beaten down pretty good, and he was a smaller heavyweight as well, but he could box out of this world. I mean, Chris Bird had amazing skill, amazing hand speed, all of that, but in the heavyweight division nowadays, I'm just saying nowadays because nowadays I think we have a super athlete in that heavyweight division. It's a supersized heavyweight division, which power matters. I mean, you can't go up against a guy like Anthony Joshua and expect him to outbox him for 12 rounds, because I don't think it's going to happen. He's such a big, imposing character that just for 12 solid rounds, I just don't think you're going to stay away from him, because one, he's a good athlete. He'll catch Usyk sooner or later. I mean, Usyk was getting hit a little bit by Chazz Witherspoon, which kind of surprised me a little bit. I was like, Chazz Witherspoon actually landed some really good jabs all night. He landed a couple check right hands, and I was like a little surprised. And I expected Usyk to beat Chazz Witherspoon, but I was kind of expecting him to knock him out. I mean, Chazz kind of quit on his stool because probably the next couple of rounds he might have got knocked out, but I don't know. I think there is a lot of work to do with Usyk. Maybe 10, 15 years ago, Usyk would have been okay in that division, because it was not 10 or 15, but maybe pre-Deontay Wilder, pre-Anthony Joshua, where there was kind of a lull in the heavyweight division. I think Usyk would have been okay. But right now, the heavyweight division is packed. The heavyweight division, there's some legit contenders that are not just champions. There's some legit contenders out there. So I don't know. I mean, he's got more fights to come, obviously, and I'm going to be watching closely, but I don't see anything special in Usyk that's going to get him by in the heavyweight division. I think Usyk completely cleaned out.
I'm going to double down on that. Travis. I agree with you in the sense that the heavyweight division, these guys have more power than ever before, but I think the heavyweight division in terms of skill level in some ways is weaker than ever, because, like you said, Wilder can knock out everyone. But I've seen him being outboxed by a former cruiserweight in Artur Szpilka for like 9 rounds before he landed the knockout, right? Szpilka's not, even a cruiserweight, Szpilka's not a good boxer. And Usyk's boxing level and skill level is just so much higher. And I think from what I've seen with Usyk, and when I saw, so I've pretty much seen every fight of his going back to, I think, his 4th or 5th fight. He definitely fights the level of his competition sometimes. When he wants to I've seen him fight, when he fought like Michael Hunter. Mike Hunter's not a bad fighter by any means, but, he didn't really step up the way he wanted to. Now, when he decided to go on the road in Russia to fight Gassiev in like a crazy hostile crowd, he was so locked in for every absolute millisecond of that fight. And that's why he won every second of that fight. When he beat Bradis on the road in Latvia, that was a war, and he didn't have a good training camp. He was sick. He still put it all together. So I've definitely seen moments where he just where he decides, when he wants to step it up. Against Bellew, when he wants to sit on his punches, because against the first 6 rounds, he wasn't really sitting on his punches. When he wants to sit on his punches, boom, the knockout happens. But I think we've seen, again, Wilder and Joshua both have been outboxed by guys who are, no one would call them amazing boxers. No one would call them slick like Ali or anything like that. Andy Ruiz is a good boxer. Don't get me wrong. He is, for a guy that size, he has a lot of agility and all that. But obviously his skill level is good for the crop that's there. But again, we've seen, Joshua has lost rounds to guys like Povetkin. Again, very good fighters, but Povetkin, a guy who's definitely over the hill, was still able to take some rounds. The one person I think that Usyk's probably going to have almost no chance against is Fury, because Fury has the size and skill level that guys don't have. But I mean, like I said, Fury dominated Wilder. Usyk doesn't have Fury's size, but he has a skill level, and I think that's what makes it so intriguing, that he has such an amazing skill set, but at the same time, he is so much smaller than a lot of these guys. I mean, it's hard to see yesterday because he's still 6'3". He's not short. And I think that's one thing that will definitely help him, because Wilder's 217, 220. But Wilder is all muscle and super lean, super tall and rangy. And I think that's what, we've heard guys who say, what would you rather have? A guy who's, a shorter fighter or tall and rangy. And it's the tall and rangy fighters that are able to leverage power. And that's what we see with Wilder. So I'm wondering if Usyk could almost become something like that. I guess the question becomes, is he going to end up fighting Wilder or Joshua first? It looks like it's going to be the winner of Joshua and Ruiz. And you know what? It's all styles, right? I think he has a much better chance against Joshua and Ruiz than he does against Wilder. I think Wilder, funny enough, has a better chance against Usyk, but Fury, it might be Wilder's kryptonite. And Joshua and Fury might, on the other hand, Joshua might have the upper hand against Fury. So I think the problem is 15 years ago, you had the influx of European talent, and no one was beating Vladimir Klitschko. And it's funny, and I got to think, because I know the connection that Klitschko and Usyk have. There's no way that Usyk didn't consult with them and talk to them about moving up. I think, I wouldn't say he gave them their blessing, but I think they definitely told him, like, look, we think you can handle this. We think this is it. We think you're able to.
What they told him? They said, "Hey, you're not going to make any money unless you go to the heavyweight division." That's probably what they told him.
I don't know about that, because he won the Super Six. He won no, not really, because I think this is a very, and in the cruiserweight division, I know it's not really exist in America.
He cleaned out the cruiserweight division. You said he cleaned out the cruiserweight division, so he wasn't going to make any money down there. There was nobody else to fight. So I 100% he came up to heavyweight because, one, there was nobody in the cruiserweight division, and two, as we all know right now, the money is in the heavyweight division, and that's because we have a bunch of top fighters and top contenders. So I think his biggest payday, I would like to see that, but I bet it could have been last night in a fight against Chazz Witherspoon. I bet that could have been one of his biggest paydays, and that was
I highly doubt it, because he fought in Latvia and against Bradis and a sellout 50,000 stadium, and he fought against Gassiev in a sellout 50,000 stadium. I think there's a thinking, and let's face it, I think I'm the only non-American on here. But I've watched. I think outside of America, everyone knows who Usyk is. And you know what? If you hear the crowd's reaction in Chicago yesterday, they know who Usyk is. I don't think most of America still knows who Andy Ruiz is. I don't think most of America knows who a lot of the American fighters are. I think boxing is so alive and well outside of America that I don't think those guys have a problem making money. I think you're right that obviously the heavyweight division has more money. It always has. It always will. Because the heavyweight champ is still always going to be the heavyweight champ. But I don't think he moves up for money. I don't think guys like Usyk are not, these guys fought as amateurs late into the lives for the fun of it in so many ways. But you're right. He moved up because he cleared out cruiserweight. There's nothing else for him to do there. But I think he wants a challenge too. And that's why he's not going to be, you're not going to see him against I mentioned Chisora Parker. You might see him against one or two of those guys. You're not going to see him against 5 or 6 of them. He's not going to try to really build to that weight. I just think he's ready for it now, and I think we almost might see how Fury and Wilder fought. We might see him school guys, but we might see him knocked out at the same time. And that's what's happened to a lot of guys from cruiserweight who've moved up to the heavyweight division. If you guys remember with Vasily Durov moving up, I think it was against Michael Moore. He won like the first 8 rounds and he got clocked because that's the difference when you're fighting a heavyweight and when you're a cruiserweight. What I've seen so far, at least, if anything, what we saw yesterday is at least he moved up the right way. He did not put on 20 pounds of fat. And that's what we see a lot of cruiserweights who go up to heavyweight do. But that's what's intriguing. It's because he might get knocked out, and you might get knocked out after winning 11 rounds. But I just think that the discipline he's shown in the Gassiev fight for a guy who's known as a hard hitter, he's going to need that in the heavyweight division. Now, I've seen he can do it, but doing it against heavyweights is a whole different animal. But that's what makes him actually intriguing in the heavyweight division, because it's just a complete different wrench in the mix that none of these guys have ever seen before.
Man, you guys are good. All right, let's segue to the most incredible story of the year. Undefeated welterweight champ Errol Spence Jr., one of the best fighters in the world, wrecked his Ferrari last week in Dallas. He was coming from a nightclub at 3 a.m., lost control in downtown Dallas at high speed, flipped the car 5 times. Amazing video if you guys haven't seen it yet. He was ejected because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and that probably saved his life, they say. Somehow didn't break or fracture a single bone in his body. Knocked out some teeth, I guess. Apparently there's a really good chance that his boxing career won't be significantly affected, if at all. Travis, if you're Errol Spence, do you feel like every day of the rest of your life is on borrowed time?
I mean, he's the chosen one now. I mean, if you think about it, he was chosen by God, by somebody, whoever you believe in, to survive that. Because, Dennis, I did watch that video, and holy crap, that didn't look good at all, man. I mean, you see a person getting ejected as the dust is flying. It's crazy. And the sad thing, too, is that I did just read reports that they said that more than likely he's going to be prosecuted for a DUI, so he was drinking. So that's what's sad, but at the end of the day, you know what? We're all human. We've all made mistakes. We've all done these things.
Yep.
So, I mean, maybe not in a Ferrari, and we haven't gotten a wreck and almost killed ourselves, but we've all made our own mistakes. We're all sinners at best. And at the end of the day, I hope that he does learn from this, because you never really ever hear of Errol Spence getting in trouble. You never hear him out partying, getting into crazy stuff. So which makes me think that,
right,
this was a one-off. I mean, maybe he just made a mistake. And at the end of the day, that's what the world has to realize, that, these guys aren't perfect. I mean, none of us are perfect. He's a phenomenal athlete. He's undefeated. His record is perfect right now, but that doesn't make him perfect. I mean, sometimes people, they put these boxers and these athletes on this pedestal and think that every single thing that they do in their everyday life is perfect as well, but it's not. These guys make mistakes. They're human at the end of the day. Even though what Errol Spence does in that ring is superhuman, at the end of the day, he's still human, and this kid made a mistake, and, thank God that he's alive and well, and, yeah, I heard that it just knocked his teeth out, and those can be replaced. Thankfully, everything that happened to him can be replaced. That Ferrari, it can be replaced. His teeth can be replaced. His health and his life can't be replaced. So, thankfully, he got that, and I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but we're boxing experts here, though. Thankfully, he's still around, because now we hopefully get to see an Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford fight one of these days.
Yeah.
So beyond all of that, I'm thankful, because the boxing world deserves to see Errol Spence, because he's an amazing talent, and thankful he's still around to deliver that to everybody.
My dear old dad, rest in peace, always used to look at me and say, he said, all young people are stupid, and the younger you are, the more stupid you are. I can remember being 18 years old in my mother's 1964 Mercury Comet, going 110 miles an hour just to see if I could on Interstate 70 with bald tires. And somehow I survived that. Nothing happened to me. But, man, like you said, Travis, everything, I mean, we all screw up when we're young. We all do dumb stuff when we're young. This goes back to Eloy too, I tried cocaine when I was 21 years old. and nothing happened to me. But man, it's just sometimes it's just a roll of the dice, and it's you either get lucky or you don't. And I've been friggin' lucky. Riz, what's your take on this Errol Spence thing? How lucky is this kid?
I think it's crazy because I think first reports you guys sent out in the morning, the ones we read, said Errol Spence and major Ferrari. It's like we would all at that point be surprised he was going to be alive. Then a few hours later said, okay, he's stable. And they're like, all right, well, he's alive and non-life threatening, but I mean, that could mean anything because that's what they said. If you guys remember Paul Williams, that's what they said about him.
We're all thinking Paul Williams. Yep.
Exactly. So, that we thought that was the same thing that kind of crossed our mind. And then it went from, he's stable to, we don't really know what the update is. And then later in the day it said, yep, he's pretty much fine, just some cuts. And it's like, what? Like not even, like I said, no broken bones. It's almost impossible. Now, and again, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor of any sort, but I definitely think that him being a supreme athlete and always taking care of himself definitely plays a factor into that. How your body's able to handle trauma. But it's shocking. And I think you guys are absolutely right. I think in a weird way, this might have actually pushed the timeline for Spence and Crawford and somehow. I don't know how. Like, put it this way. Spence is probably going to be out at least 6 months, right? 6 months to a year. I mean, we don't know the extent of the damage, but, something along those lines. He probably wasn't going to fight the rest of the year anyways. So, I mean, let's say he returns like next summer or something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a one fight and then Crawford. I mean, again, we're speaking a little early because we don't know. First of all, we don't know what his extent of his damage are and how he's going to recover and all those sort of things. But I just want to actually something we need to mention is Sean Porter's message and Sean Porter's reaction to it. Sean Porter is the definition of a class act in every single way, and we said this after the fight too. We said this before the fight, right? Porter's just that kind of guy, and that's what made I was talking to someone about this just now, and he just said people make stupid mistakes, and I don't think we can say it any better because Spence was not. We hear the story and we think, are they sure they're talking about Errol Spence? Because this doesn't sound like an Errol Spence story, right? A drunk driving charge, speeding a Ferrari, like it's just. But again, I mean, we've all done stupid things at some point in our lives, and sometimes you don't really pay for it, and then sometimes you pay for it in a big way. And I hope Errol Spence really learned his lesson. And he should be charged with the drunk driving charge because that's, just thank God no one else is hurt, because he could be on the hook for a lot more than just that. So it's actually amazing that out of all of this, he's pretty much just coming out with a charge and he's fine otherwise, which is just beyond crazy. But, but Errol Spence has always struck me as a very humble guy. So I don't want to say this is going to humble him. Because I don't know, I didn't think there was anything wrong with the way he approached anything before. I just think there was a significant, he made a significant mistake and almost paid even more significantly, but I bet he's counting his stars and praying every second and very thankful for what has happened because, again, guys like Paul Williams is just on his motorcycle just like a lot of people are, and we saw the end result for that. So it could, and even Paul Williams, I'm sure, will tell you that it could have been a lot worse too. So it's actually shocking. It's probably one of the most crazy negative to turn crazy positive stories I've heard in a while. It was a pretty insane 24-hour news cycle that happened there. But it's even crazier than a sport like boxing. And you got to think that guys, Travis can probably speak on this a little more, but something's got to be a little wrong with you to box for a living. And I think when you have that I mean, let's face it, you're getting punched in the face for a living, right? It's not, there's better ways you can probably earn some money. But I think, even the most normal, humble guys like Errol Spence, like Golovkin, like Klitschko, they have a sense of, I don't know what the word is. I don't know if it's ego or arrogance or invincibility about them. I think they think that, look, I'm punching people in the face for a living. I can speed my car an extra 10 kilometers an hour, 20 kilometers an hour, right? I don't know if that's the case actually, but I'm just saying that there's got to be, usually what we've seen guys like Arturo Gatti who lives fast and hard in the ring, and away from the ring it's the exact same. We've seen the guys who are in wars when they're 25 are having problems in their 30s. Like there's a translation to that. Guys like Hopkins, who are super disciplined outside the ring, are super disciplined inside the ring. But that's what made this Spence story just kind of different. But again, he's young, he has money. I just think it was just a very, very stupid mistake, especially with the amount of money you have. Dude, call an Uber, call a cab, call one of your buddies who will gladly take $100 to drive you home, right? That's the most disappointing part of the story for me. But I just really hope he's learned his lesson.
Yeah, Riz, I mean, I wish I could take offense to what you said, but I can't take offense when it's the truth.
It's not an insult. I never said it's an insult.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, I understand it, and it's true. I tell people that. I'm like, you know what? I think seriously, there's something. We have one screw loose for sure. I mean, anybody that wants to make a living by doing this is crazy. But granted, I got into the sport when I was 6 years old, so who knows? But I know that for a fact that I look at it nowadays, and the fact that I continue to do it, I'm like, yeah. I mean, I have to be a little bit different in the head for sure. I mean, it's a rough sport. It is what it is. But hey, you're so right. And I think this is what I think that most people don't understand and grasp. Every time, like even when I see guys like Floyd Mayweather and those guys do some silly things, this is what I tell everybody. And none of us can put ourselves in their shoes, because to be rich and talented at a sport like boxing, you're filthy rich. I mean, you're a millionaire, 10 times over, especially Mayweather. Mayweather's probably worth $500 million. How can any of us truly know how we would react and do and behave unless we got that kind of money? It's easy. I always tell people, I want to believe that I would be the same person, good, kind-hearted, respectful person. But do I ever truly know unless I have $500 million and I'm out at a party or I'm out at a bar and I'm driving a Ferrari or a Bugatti? Do I know how I would honestly react? I don't. And that's why I have some compassion, and I do have a little bit of forgiveness for guys that make some mistakes, like Errol Spence. This is his first mistake. Everybody, you're given a mistake or two, maybe, but this is a big one. So I think the world, and I think especially guys like us, the experts that follow boxing so closely, I think he will get a pass on this, and we're going to be watching closely, how he reacts after this, and hopefully it's good. Hopefully the guy learned his lesson, and I hope that he lives a better, more truer life and doesn't get caught up into that Ferrari, multimillionaire, I'm undefeated professional boxer, I'm a pay-per-view sell now. So I hope that he can reel it in, and the only thing that helps people like that in those positions is the people that you have around you. So I hope that Errol Spence has some good people around him, and that's what's going to help him through all of this. It's not a singular thing. It's not a thing that's going to help you. And that's why I genuinely believe that Mayweather, I think that he ended up having, as bad of people as he might have around him, he's got some people that are really good, that are close to him, like Leonard Ellerbe took care of his money for him and helped him make financial decisions and things like that. And it's people that are directly around you that are going to really help you evolve. And also really quick about being a class act, Terrence Crawford also tweeted out and sent out an amazing message to Errol Spence, and that's what I think both of them. Sean Porter is without a doubt a class act, but when I seen that message from Terrence Crawford too, I was like, this is his enemy, this is his foe. For him to send out a tweet like that, it was pretty awesome. I like to see boxers who are class acts at the same time. Once that bell rings and then between that squared circle, they turn it on, and that's what all those guys do. Sean Porter, he's a class act outside the ring, but you put him in that ring, he's a bulldog. Errol Spence, same thing. Terrence Crawford, same thing. So that's why I like it. They're setting good examples for all these kids coming up to realize that you don't have to be hateful outside the ring to be good inside that ring. So I hope people see that and take note of that. The best in the world, with Sean Porter, I consider him up there too. Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, they're all reaching out in times of need like this. And when people make mistakes, they're very forgiving as well. But I think they're all class acts, and I think Terrence Crawford definitely deserves props for that as well.
And one other way that Spence has to be counting his blessings this week is that he was alone in that car. Because if there had been somebody else, that the other person would not have been so lucky, I'm sure. And then Spence would have that on his conscience for the rest of his life. Another quick pivot here, and then we're all done. Guys, Tyson Fury continues to astound. He's rehabilitated and resurrected his boxing career that was in ruins for 3 years. He's perfectly positioned to become the king of the world at this point. And at a time when he really should be laser focused on this rematch with Wilder, he is instead going to screw around with a WWE professional wrestling match against Braun Strowman on Halloween night in Saudi Arabia. This is the kind of thing that Ali did a couple times. A lot of fighters have. Ali fought that Japanese wrestler one time, and he came away with blood clots in his legs that nearly cost him his next fight. He also fought an exhibition against Lyle Alzado, the 280-pound NFL defensive lineman who was an All-Pro with the Denver Broncos at the time. Strowman supposedly is 6'8", 385 pounds. This is going to be an exhibition. Nobody's making any bones about that. But and this guy's going to be under orders, I'm sure, to not to do anything at all to endanger Fury's career. But there's going to be body slams. They're going to entertain the crowd. So this seems like a crazy and stupid risk, considering everything that's on the line for Tyson Fury in 2020 and beyond. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? That's a toss-up question, you know?
Yeah. You know what, though? I think this is almost where he's not, obviously, yes, he could get injured, but I think he's almost living the post-Errol Spence life in some ways, because Tyson Fury a couple years ago was borderline, forget about coming back to the ring. I think there was obviously bigger questions about his life. So I think now his mental, you can see the mental approach he has to just life is very different. Now it's just, I'm going to have fun and anything I want, and that's pretty much it, right? Nothing's really. He said, look, I made money to be secure and for my family to be secure, and other than that, I'm just going to enjoy life. And you know what? Why not? Because it's a funny thing. It's not really interfering with his boxing career either, right? It's happening 3 weeks. He's not taking this instead of taking a boxing fight. So good for Tyson Fury, because that guy's become the most surprising global icon. Because and he also went from a guy who's a boring fighter to a guy who is a fun, disciplined fighter. He's went from the guy who was just more annoying and said stupid things to the guy who's almost come back from death, like literally twice, and we saw in the ring once too. And I think he just approaches life in a completely different way now. And I think maybe we'll end up seeing something like that from Spence. Funny enough, I'm watching a commercial right now that just shows Wilder dropping Fury, ironically. But it's funny just to see Fury as he's different, and that's all. And I think that's the way he's approaching it now. He just says, "I'm blessed, and I'm going to enjoy my blessings," and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think it's a good idea.
Riz, are we not exciting enough? You got to be watching TV while you're talking on the most exciting boxing radio show out there?
Well, I'm watching my Eagles game, and I work in sports TV, so kind of works hand in hand. I'm just happy to be staring at the TV. And in my defense, it was a boxing commercial, so I think it still fits.
Nice. I think right now, I think Tyson Fury is a cash cow. He's a cash cow.
I agree.
He's just, money is throwing everywhere at him because he's become a global icon.
And you know what? In addition to that, it's without controversy. It's not the part of controversy sells. He's doing it because he's very likable. And that's what's amazing. He went from the controversial guy that people dislike to try to sell like almost the Mayweather persona to the complete opposite, where now he's the biggest cash cow for just being himself. And like everyone, like I never used to like Tyson Fury. I was never a fan of him. I thought he was completely overrated. And then like, how can you not like this guy now? It's almost impossible not to like him.
He turned a page, and that's what I think is awesome. Why the world, we all love a comeback story, and that's why people are allowed to make mistakes. It's how they react to those mistakes after they've already made those mistakes. And I think right now Tyson Fury is showing the world, like, you know what, you can be yourself. Be yourself. Be strong. Be yourself. Inspire. And that's what he's doing. And I agree. I wasn't a big fan of him. When I watched him beat Klitschko, that was probably one of the most annoying and frustrating fights that I think I've ever watched. I almost turned it off because I just couldn't fathom watching it anymore. And I'm not even kidding. And everybody that knows me, you guys and everybody that's been listening to this radio show, I am a huge boxing fan through and through. I don't just compete in it. I'm actually a huge fan. And Tyson Fury's style used to just get under my skin. But now when I watch him, he's changed. Like, he's changed. He's exciting. He's charismatic. He can fight. Like, I said it, and I'll keep saying that. I still think he's the best heavyweight in the world. He's number one, and until somebody proves wrong otherwise, a draw with Deontay Wilder doesn't change my mind, because I know that Tyson Fury won that fight. So the long story short of all of this, Tyson Fury is a cash cow. So us athletes, we only have a small time frame to make as much money as we possibly can when we're in our prime. And I think that's what Tyson Fury is doing. So good for him. At the end of the day, I hope that he gets out of boxing with tons of money in his pocket, and not like Joe, or the old, who was it? Joe Frazier said boxing is the only sport that can get your brain wrong and your money took, or something like that. And that's what I want. I don't want these guys to get their brain rang and their money taken. So I hope Tyson Fury is definitely being smart with all of his money, but at the same time, he's making a ton of it right now, and good for him.
Yeah, 3 years ago, I just thought he was a big meathead, and now I think he's one of the most entertaining people in sports. So I'm with you guys. Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, John J. Raspanti, our expert analysts. Man, I just love putting my feet up and listening to you guys. You guys are outstanding. Great insight every week into the sweet science. Outstanding job, guys, as always. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Take care, guys.
All right. John Raspanti will be back in a few minutes for our interview with an all-time great International Boxing Hall of Famer, Carlos Palomino, King Carlos. But before that, we are headed across the pond where Paul McLaughlin is standing by to give us the latest news from the United Kingdom. That's all straight ahead, so stay with us.
Former heavyweight champions slip out of the news as easily as ex-presidents. But Muhammad Ali was never your garden variety champion of all the world. Yesterday in Los Angeles, he responded like a superhero when a distraught man threatened suicide. Terry Drinkwater reports.
From a ledge 9 floors above Wilshire Boulevard, the hooded man shouted, "I'm no good. I'm going to jump. The Viet Cong are coming at me." Police, a psychologist, and a minister had all but given up trying to change the despondent man's mind when Muhammad Ali, who happened to be nearby, volunteered to talk to him. The former heavyweight champion went to a window and reportedly yelled, "I'm your brother. I want to help you." Recognizing Ali, the man finally opened the fire escape door, and Ali approached him on the ledge. It was a very tense 20 minutes. Several times it looked as though Ali was going to fail. Then, suddenly, it was all over. The man, Ali said later, began to weep. He was taken to the psychiatric ward of a veterans hospital. The former champ promised to visit him there later this week. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Los Angeles.
This show just makes me want to punish somebody.
What are you doing?
Hi there, it's Paul McLaughlin with your weekly roundup of everything going on in the UK boxing scene at the moment. While we start off, well, is it boxing? Is it just a circus? Former unified world heavyweight champion Tyson Fury will compete against Braun Strowman at a WWE event in Saudi Arabia on Halloween. Fury, who is 31, has appeared twice on WWE in recent weeks and has already started a feud with Strowman. The Saudi Arabia matches were confirmed by wrestler and WWE executive Triple H, who insisted the night would bring the worlds of UFC, boxing and WWE together in a way only the WWE can. Here is what Tyson Fury said on the night of the announcement.
Just like to take this opportunity to say how honoured I am to be here and to be involved in such a massive event in Saudi Arabia. Something I've always dreamed of. I was a lifelong WWE fan, and it's a fantastic opportunity for me to be here. I just want to say how excited I am to be fighting the monster among men, Braun Strowman. After seeing him, I really know why he's got the nickname, the monster among men. But me being the undefeated lineal heavyweight boxing champion, I fear no man. I'm undefeated in 30 professional contests. And when I go to Saudi Arabia to fight Braun Strowman, I'm still going to be undefeated because I'm going to knock Braun Strowman out.
Elsewhere, former world featherweight champion Scott Harrison says he will make his comeback in November, more than 6 years after his last bout. Harrison, 42, was released in July 2018 from prison after serving 4 years for assault. He was set to make his return last December against Taki Annan, only for the entire show to be postponed. However, he is now scheduled to fight on the undercard of Nigel Benn's bout with Sakio Bika on the 23rd of November in Birmingham. What has the world come to? Last year, the Scot has said he was aiming to win a third world title on his return to the sport after overcoming a lot of very dark times in jail. Now, Harrison became WBO featherweight champion in 2002 before losing, then regaining his belt the following year. However, I think at 42, it's come a little bit too late for him. Maybe he should hang up his gloves once and for all. And finally, is this another circus? David Price has been announced as the new opponent for Derek Chisora on the Regis Progress Josh Taylor bill at the O2 on October the 26th. The Liverpudlian replaces Joseph Parker, who pulled out through illness last week, and will battle Chisora in a big domestic heavyweight clash on the same night as Prograis faces Taylor in the World Boxing Super Series final. Price was due to appear on the Callum Smith-John Ryder undercard in his hometown next month, but has seized this opportunity to return to the scene of his dominant stoppage victory over Dave Allen in the summer. Now, manager David Hay revealed last week how Chisora was very upset with Parker's withdrawal, although was channeling his frustration into another significant fight. Well, this has come up now with David Price. So we caught up with Del Boy, asked him a few things, including how he felt about Shannon Briggs calling him out.
Listen, if I want a hype man, I'll get Shannon Briggs. Do you understand? He called me a journeyman. He's the hype man. What's better, journeyman or a hype man? You know, he's a hype man for KSA. He's a hype man for AJ. He's a hype man for anybody. Let's go what? Let's go what? Let's go fool. He's the guy's got one eyeglass guy, man. He's a fool, man.
And who is next for Del Boy after Price, should he win?
Gerard Miller's next. 100%.
And what are his thoughts on Tyson Fury dipping his feet into the wrestling world?
WWE, give a shout out to Tyson Fury and his management team. You know, they really know how they're pushing him out there in America. You know, Tyson Fury is becoming an American household name, so they know exactly what they're doing, what market they're pushing in, and he's doing right. That's it. You know, he's got this big fight with Deontay Wilder coming up, so they're trying to get everybody else backing up Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, so that's good for them.
Right, well, that's your lot from me. More normal boxing back next week, hopefully. In the meantime, gloves up and protect yourselves at all times. Back to the studio.
Paul McLaughlin is a guy with his finger on the pulse of boxing and wrestling, as it turns out, in the UK. Well done, Paul. Thanks much. Our featured guest, King Carlos, is on the on-deck circle, 1 minute away. This is the Ringside Boxing Show. Do not touch that dial.
I'm Dennis Taylor, co-author of the Amazon bestseller Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy. You know, writing this book was a labor of love for John J. Raspanti and myself. We enjoyed every minute of the process and considered it a privilege to tell the tale of one of the most electrifying boxing trilogies in the history of this sport. Intimate Warfare traces the collision course of Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward from their earliest days through their 3 epic fights, as well as the aftermath of this great rivalry, which culminated in one of the greatest friendships in boxing. Intimate Warfare has received a 4.5-star rating from readers and was endorsed by Hall of Famers Harold Letterman and Joe Cortez and 2-time Trainer of the Year Virgil Hunter. Our foreword was written by Ray Boom Boom Mancini, another one of the greatest blood and guts fighters of our time. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
Introducing to you on my left, out of the black corner wearing white velvet trunks, weighing in at a trim 146 pounds, from beautiful Montebello, California, in his first title try, appropriately named Mondo the Man Muniz. Ladies and gentlemen, his opponent from Westminster, California, tonight in his 7th title defense, weighing in right at the weight limit of 147, appropriately named in the boxing world, King Carlos Salamina.
Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti, and we are joined right now by one of boxing's certified all-time greats. Carlos Palomino was the WBC welterweight champion of the world for more than 2.5 years. He enjoyed a 38-fight pro career that included fights with Hedgeman Lewis, Armando Muniz, Dave Boy Green, Roberto Duran, Wilfredo Benitez, Wilfredo Rivera, all of which earned him a place in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. He and Armando Muniz made boxing history by becoming the first college graduates ever to face each other in a world title fight. He also had an acting career, appearing in shows like Taxi and The White Shadow and Star Trek Voyager, and a series of very popular Miller Lite beer commercials back in the 1980s. Carlos, always great to talk to you on the Ringside Boxing Show, my friend. Welcome back. How have you been?
Thank you very much. So that was a great introduction, by the way. Thank you.
Hey, our pleasure, man. Yeah. Hey, Carlos, for the benefit of our audience, we're actually recording this interview with you on Thursday morning, and it's just a few hours after Errol Spence was seriously injured in a car accident in Dallas. And by the time we play this interview on Sunday's show, we'll obviously have a lot more information. So we're not going to go too much into that right now, except for this. The three of us know what it's like to grow old, and we also remember what it was like to be 20-something and, in our own minds, 10 feet tall and bulletproof. What you also know that John and I don't is what it's like to be a 20-something and famous with a big wad of money in your pocket and women hanging on both arms and driving around in a hot, sexy car. I can remember driving 110 miles an hour on I-70 when I was 18 years old on bald tires in my mother's 1964 Mercury. Somehow I'm still here today. Looking back on your career, on your life, did it ever get dangerous for you to be young and famous and unbreakable and have a little bit too much money in your pocket for your own life experience?
You know, that never affected me because, just because of where I came from. I came from when I was a kid in Mexico from poverty. And so I was really very, very careful. And I have never liked speed. I still drive when my brother's with me or anybody's driving with me on the freeway. I'm driving 60 miles an hour, and they're like, "What the heck? Everybody's passing you. Could you speed it up a little bit?" So I've never really liked speed. I mean, I treated myself to a nice little car when I won the title, a little 450 LCC Mercedes, but I never drove that car more than 60 miles an hour.
Wow, really?
Very, very, yeah, I was always very careful. I had a little TR6. It was a little speed car, British car that I also bought. And yeah, I just never, I never liked speed. So I've been very careful with myself. And yes, it's dangerous, and it's really sad. That's when you're at the top of your game, and then it could be cut so short so quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we saw it happen to Paul Williams with the motorcycle wreck, and you were saying just before we came on the air that your first thought was Salvador Sanchez, who was one of your contemporaries.
Exactly. There's just been a couple of guys that cut their lives short with by being a little bit too adventurous and by driving too fast. Corrales.
Easy to do when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Diego Corrales.
Oh yeah.
Motorcycle.
I also because I started. I was already an adult when I started boxing. I was 21 years old, and I won a title at 26. So I was. I come from a really large family, a family of 12, and my father was a real hard knocks kind of guy who just instilled that in us, on all of us. Even my sisters. There were 6 girls, 6 boys, and just the thought of taking care of yourself and not partaking in any dangerous kind of things. When I was in the Army boxing team, we were 4 bag and training with the 82nd Airborne Division, and they came to the gym and they asked if we wanted to train to jump out of a plane, and about half of the guys on the team said, "Yeah, let's go, let's do it." I was like, "No way, man! I'm not jumping out of a plane. Are you crazy?"
Pretty nuts.
Right.
So hey, when you're driving on the LA freeway now and holding up traffic, you have one of those old man hats? Do you put on an old man hat and kind of shrink down so you look 5'2"?
It's a good idea. I haven't done that yet, but I should do that because I do get honked. I get honked at a lot.
Yeah. Or put your arm out.
I speed up to like 65. I speed up to like 65, and they're like, "Okay, yeah, that's enough."
That's great. So, Carlos, tell me. I think I know the answer to this, but how engaged are you in boxing nowadays? Do you follow it pretty closely?
Yeah, I do. I've stayed, pretty much engaged because I love the sport. Right now I'm living in Ontario. I went through a divorce about 20 months ago, and I was in City to City, and I was volunteering at a boxing gym for young kids. So, and then some of them wanted to boxing amateur. So I had about 3 or 4 kids that I took to tournaments, and I stayed in contact with a lot of the coaches and they're run into, and so I follow the game really closely. Yeah.
There's been a lot of buzz around the welterweight division for the last 2 or 3 years, as we know. We are hoping that Errol Spence obviously recovers, but we've also got Sean Porter and Terrence Crawford, who's one of the best, and Keith Thurman, who just fought, Danny Garcia, and, of course, the legendary Manny Pacquiao. Your era, which Dennis and I remember so well, of course, and you do, had, Wilfred Benitez and Pepino Cuevas and Pete Ranzani and, of course, Armando Muniz and John Stracey, who you won the title from, our friend Randy Shields, Clyde Gray. I know I'm leaving some people out. By 1978, Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns were in the top 10. Let's compare.
Yeah.
How do you think current batch of the 147-pounders stack up with the guys of your generation?
I like a lot of the guys that I see now, but I don't think that you can really compare the Porter and Garcia and the only guy that stands out to me right now is Crawford, but he's a lightweight moving up to welterweight. It's like it reminds me of Duran, coming up there. So too many guys that can move up and be successful. Because they're smaller guys putting on weight, and Duran did it. Ray Leonard did it. He moved from welterweight up to middleweight, and I don't know why people. I don't know why people do that. I never had trouble making 147. So when I decided I wanted to retire at 30, and people were telling me, "Why don't you just move up? Why don't you just move up to 154?" I was like, "Are you crazy? I'm at 147, they're hitting hard. At 154, they're probably hitting a lot harder. So I'm not moving up. I don't want to fight at a heavier weight, So, but I see, Tommy Hearns, Ray Leonard, Duran. Muniz was a guy that just, he was a little bit like Porter, except to me, Porter kind of loops his punches a little bit too much for me. He's on the outside. That's why I thought Errol Spence would beat him easy, because Errol stays pretty tight and he's very precise with his punches. That's how Armando Muniz was, man. Armando Muniz would be in your chest for every second of every round of every minute, but his punching was all inside. Was very short and technique wise was, it's just impactful when he hit you, because he had shorter arms too, so he had to be inside. Benitez was just a genius defensive fighter who could just move, and he's standing in front of you, and he's just a hard guy to hit. And so yeah, I mean, I see a lot of good guys now, but I don't think they compare with late 70s, early 80s, ultimately the 80s kind of welterweights.
Yeah, you were at Staples, right?
Keith Thurman. I mean, I like Keith Thurman, but I don't think that kid really wants to fight.
Oh yeah,
that's our vibe too. Yeah.
Yeah, we think he does
interest, I think.
Good. Yeah, I wanted to ask you real quick. You were at Staples when Errol Spence fought Sean Porter a few weeks ago, right? And it kind of reminded me that fight of your day, the fights they used to have at the Olympic, because they were really going at it. The crowd was enjoying it, right? So
they did. I mean, absolutely. I was a little surprised at Porter, because I thought he would be the one pressuring, but he was the one that was moving, and Spence was walking towards him. But as I said, I think his shots are a little bit on the outside. He loops his hooks in his right hand, and he was getting caught inside. A lot of body punches. I saw a lot of body punches by Spence, up the middle, and but they went at it. They are definitely. I mean, Porter definitely came to fight.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hey, Carlos, what was it like? What was it like for you to fight a guy who was just completely relentless, a guy who wasn't getting tired, and you realized you weren't going to break his will? What goes on in your head as a fighter when you're in with a guy like that? Who was in your career?
That was Armando Muniz. You couldn't break him down. I mean, both fights that he went with Montequilanopolis, when in my eyes, the first one was the greatest robbery that's ever been happening ever. Mm-hmm. And then he went to Mexico City to the elevation, and went 15 rounds with Montequilla. To me, Montequilla is one of the best welterweights in history. And so he was one day, but I was, I felt the same way. My mindset was, first of all, in every fight they had, my mindset, even when I made my comeback at 48, I worked so hard, and my mindset was there was no opponent that was ever going to be in the ring with me that was in better shape than me. That was always my mindset. Duran was like that. Duran. I mean, I could pretty much tell, when you're in the center ring and you're staring into each other's eyes, I could kind of tell if I could take a guy's heart just by the look, And there were just some guys, like Muniz and Duran, where you go like, oh shit, it's going to be a long night.
Oh my God. Talking about a legendary fighter that's doing an incredible amount later in his career, Carlos. Are you a little surprised, or are you not surprised? I don't even know if I want to use that term with this guy, but Manny Pacquiao was able to beat the aforementioned Keith Thurman, and he's still fighting at a high level at the age of 40. Is that like a wow thing to you, like to most of us?
It absolutely is, man. Because it's. Because I know, I was 47, 48 when I made the comeback, and I've been a guy that I've never stopped working out my whole life. I stopped boxing, and I started running marathons. I ran 9 marathons. I ran an ultra marathon, 60-mile ultra marathon. I've never been out of I've never been out of the gym. So, but watching him at 40. It just kind of tells me I think he's that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that just says, he's taking care of himself really well through his whole life. I've never heard of him being like out drinking and getting drunk and those kind of things. So if he's taking care of his body the way that I think he has, I think that's why he's still able to do what he does, and physically he has stayed at the top of his game. So it just shows that if you do that, and your body can respond, and you can actually compete at the late age.
Yeah. Why do you think there's more of those guys now that are fighting into their late 30s, their 40s, even 50, like Bernard Hopkins? Have training methods evolved?
Yeah, I think that it's a whole new technology. People are adding adding these personal trainers that they work with fighters that has nothing to do with boxing. You know, they're out and they take them out to a track and they're doing all these different activities that were never around when I was boxing. You know, it was just the old school training in boxing. You know, run, go to the gym, and that's it. Now they got all these guys, and they got dietitians, you know, telling you how to eat and what to eat. And so I think that's also the reason why a lot of these guys are able to compete at a much later age.
So thinking back, you know, and we do this because we're like Dennis and I always like to say we're old, but we like to think about the now versus the time when you were fighting and everything. What do you think is the biggest difference in boxing now versus when you were competing?
Money.
Money,
yeah. Sure.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people ask me that question, and really, I mean, boxing is boxing. You know, I mean, you don't. You have all these different training techniques now. You got these guys that are hiring personal trainers. But as far as, you know, boxing, I mean, it's what it is. You know, I mean, I can look back at tapes of Marciano and tapes of Sugarway Robinson and Graciano and Carmen Basilio, and it's the same. I mean, when you're in the ring and you're throwing punches, their combinations, nothing has changed. The only thing that I see that's changed is, it's this renewed ability to, go to a different step on how to train, maybe to add conditioning. But you know what? It's still, to me, unbelievable that I see guys fighting a 12-round championship fight and getting tired in the 10th, 11th round. Spence is not one of those guys that in this and that fight, Porter and Spence were firing all 12 rounds. But I remember seeing Oscar De La Hoya, I mean, just, when he fought Trinidad, the last 2 rounds, he could barely stand up. You know, he looked like he was just dog tired. And I don't know if that helps. When I see guys, running through cones, and I mean, I assume that it's for foot speed, but for me, that was the rope. That's what the rope was for, jumpy rope. I would go out and run 6 miles every day, 6-minute miles. Go to the track twice a week and run sprints, but I wouldn't run 50-yard sprints. I mean, I'm not a football player. I mean, I need 3 minutes, not 50 seconds. So I would run 440s, 220s, 100s, 50s, a mile cool down, mile warm up, and then I would do 4 or 5 of 5 440s, 5 220s, 500s, 550s, mile cool down. I mean, that was my work. I would do that twice a week. And the other 4 days, I'd run 6 miles, 6-minute miles. I run 6 days a week, and I never had a problem, in a 15-round fight. I mean, if you can see, especially, I mean, the fight that I point to the most is if you watch that fight with Armando Muniz, the first one that was Fight of the Year in 1977. You look at that 15th round, and we're throwing punches as fast and as hard as we were in the first two rounds. So I'm a little surprised that I see guys fighting 12 rounds and getting tired, especially when you have a personal training you after your boxing workout. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. A lot of guys from your generation have told Dennis and myself that they believe the trainers from decades ago were much better teachers than today's generation. Do you think that's true?
I really do. I believe that, technically, trainers from the past, were much better as far as teaching technique, because when you see a guy fighting for a world title like Porter throwing punches the way he does, I mean, why hadn't somebody set him down and said, listen, you have to short up those punches, you have to make them more direct. I mean, the quickest way to a target is a direct shot. You know, so you got to straighten out your right hand instead of throwing an overhand right. Just straighten it out. And it's like my trainer, when I got out of the Army in 1972, you know, I had 35 amateur fights. You know, I was an all-Army champion, all-service champion, a national AAU champion. I lost 2 fights in my amateur career. I was 33-2. But I learned the Olympic style of boxing in the Army. I didn't. All our coaches, you know, Pat Nappy was a head coach. He was the head coach of the 1976 Olympic team. He was a master sergeant that was the boxing coach for the Army. And we learned the Olympic style, just pat, throw as many punches as you can every round and win a decision. So I had no knockouts. So, you know, when my trainer, Noe Cruz and Jack McCoy saw me, they were like, "Oh, you're going to get killed fighting like that," you know. So we just got in the ring, Noe and I just got in the ring, and we just worked hours on changing my style, sitting down on my punches, you know, shortening up punches, you know, turning my left hook over, you know, going into working the body. I mean, everything. We just spent hours doing that, you know, until my style changed, you know. And in my first couple of, maybe first 8 pro fights, you know, it took me a little while to get comfortable and settling down and changing the way I fought as an amateur. But I finally got it, and I remember I don't think I had any knockouts in the first 8 fights. We had been working on my hook, you know, turning my hook over, getting the hips behind it, and I remember hitting the first time I hit a guy with a hook the way I was supposed to throw it, and the guy went down. I ran to the corner after the fight, and I told Noe and Jackie, I said, I didn't hit him that hard. I think he's faking it. So, and Noe said, you hit him hard. I guarantee you hit him hard. Yeah, so I think that's right now. You know, if you see it, you know, I watch a lot. I like this program. So when they're showing guys training before a fight, before their championship fights, you know, and you see all this flashy pad work. And that doesn't do. That's nothing. That's just. It's like you look at me. I see guys, you know, hitting the pads like it's so fast. But I don't see any technique. You know, I don't see any power. It's just it's like a show.
Hey, we make you tell this story every time you're on, but it's such a good one. One of your trainers, and I can't remember who it was, also taught you at a very early stage in your career what it was like to be a road fighter. And I think you probably know what I'm talking about. What was it? One of your first amateur fights, or one of your first pro fights that was in like Chino prison or something?
Oh yeah. That was my first fight. It was in the Chino prison.
Oh.
I was drafted. I had 3 months to show up for my draft date, and my brother had just gotten out of the Army, so I asked him how hard basic training was, and he said, "You better get in shape because they're gonna kick your butt." So the only thing I had to do was I joined a boxing gym that was down the road from me, and I went and I started just, you know, hitting the bags and jumping rope, and then one of the coaches looked at me and said, "You want to box?" And I said, "No, I'm just getting in shape for the Army. I'm going to the Army." And he told me, "Well, you know, there's boxing in the Army. You can box in there. It'll get you out of doing whatever else." You know, he said, "How do you know?" I said, "Well, we have a guy here that trains here. His name's Armando Muñiz, and he just got out of the Army. He's a pro." You know, and so Armando came in, and he introduced me to him. So then I said, "Okay." I said, "Let's do it." You know, so this is where I met my trainer, Noe, and he started working with me on the pads and working on the bag. And then, you know, about a month later, he said, "Maybe you should have a fight before you go in the Army." And I said, "All right, so how do we do that?" So he said, "Oh, let me find out whether it's," and at that time, you still had smokers. The smokers are not allowed anymore. Any boxing gym could just say, okay, we're going to have a show. We're just going to bring some people in. Anybody walk up the street, weigh in, and you can have a match. So I come to the gym. He goes, okay, I know we're going to go to Chino Prison. They're going to have some fights Saturday. I said, what? Chino Prison? He goes, yeah. So we go to Chino Prison, right? So we go to the Chino Prison, and I'm weighing in. I weigh in like 144 pounds. And there's this a black guy jumps on the scale. He's about 155. And then Noe says, hey, we'll take that fight. And I looked at him and I said, hey, isn't that guy kind of big? And he goes, hey, don't worry, guys in the prison can't fight. I said, what? He goes, guys in the prison can't fight. So I get in there, man, and it's a thing. I mean, every shot this guy hit me with just rattled me. He was just big as fuck. And but I found a way, man, and I won the fight. And this is funny. Then I'm in the shower, and he walks in, this guy, and he says, hey, man, how many fights you had? And I said, that's my first one. He goes, no way. I said, yeah, it's my first fight. He goes, hey, there's some people out there that came to see me fight today. It was I'm getting ready to get out like in a month, and I'm going to turn pro, and they're going to take care of me. He goes, so if anybody talks to you, don't tell them you only had one fight. I'm like, dude, I just been through it. My first fight. You sure we should be turning pro? It was funny. He's like, oh, he tells me. It was just, yeah. And that was one of the hardest fights I had in my whole career. I mean, I always I remember that fight though like it was yesterday.
Wow. And you probably weren't exactly the crowd favorite that day, were you?
Oh my God! I mean, well, it was we were the entertainment for the inmates, and at first they brought in all the African Americans, and they put them all on one side of the building, and then they brought in all the Hispanics, and they put them all on one side, and there was a few white guys sprinkled in between there here and there, but it was one side was African American, one side was the Mexicans, and then when this prison guy who everybody knew there gets in the ring, then I get in the ring, and they actually had to bring the guards and surround the ring after I beat them, and they had to escort me out like.
Yeah,
so my training,
police escort.
We're not fighting in another prison ever.
Good. Wow. This is the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti. We're talking to International Boxing Hall of Famer Carlos Palomino. There are a lot of different ways that boxing fans can follow the sport today that weren't available in the 1970s when you were in your heyday with all the television networks and streaming services and boxing websites and social media and so forth. Do you feel like you were born too early, or are you kind of nostalgic for the days when people had to go to the arena with a ticket or wait for boxing to come on ABC or? Yeah, you can always think about that, but I don't. There's so much now, but it's just to me it's just too much. I mean, I was trying to do an interview the other day on my phone. The guy wanted me to get on my phone, and I was like, I don't know how to do that, man. I call and I text. That's it. Yes.
So fine. I mean, I see now we have we watch everything. My brother and I are living together, and we watch everything, and it's just it's great to have everything available the way it is now.
Yeah.
But I loved in my time, because the people when like at the Olympic Auditorium especially, man, every time I get into the title there, the place was jumping, man. It was, I sat like a little bit over 10,000, but there would be like 10,000 people inside the arena and 10,000 people outside the arena waiting just to hear what happened. I mean, I remember the first fight with Armando when I walked out. It was still another 10,000 people outside just waiting. And it was hard, just getting through the crowd to get to our car. Everybody is stopping you and to talk to you after the fight, because they could just hear it. They could hear us from outside. They could hear what was happening inside, and so that was special. In London when I fought Tracy for the title, man, it was a Wembley Arena, and it was sold out, just absolutely incredible electricity in the room. You don't feel that when fights are on TV and you see the arena. I felt so bad when I went to the fight, Spence Porter fight. I was like, I told my brother, I'm gonna go early. The fight started at 6. I'm gonna watch all the early fights. And there's nobody in the arena. There's people actually still walking around working, setting up stuff, and you got two kids in the ring fighting their hearts out, and nobody's watching them. It's just that. Yeah, it was just sad to me watching. God, these poor guys when they're near. I remember my first pro fight at the Olympic, my first 4-round fight. I was the last fight of the night, and after the main event. And I came out and there was still maybe 2,000-3,000 people in the arena watching, still waiting for the last fight. It was like, they paid to watch every fight and they stayed to watch every fight.
Yep. Carlos, if we asked you who's the most exciting fighter you've ever seen in your lifetime, who's the first guy that pops into your head?
Montekianopoulos.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
No kidding. Why?
Yeah.
Why? What made him electrifying?
He was just, when I was younger, my dad loved boxing. That's all. That was the only sport that he followed. And so he would always sit me and my brother to watch fights with him. And we would watch fights from Mexico City on Channel 34 back then. He would always, we would watch Montequia, and he would sit there. He goes, "Watch this guy! Look at him! Look at how smooth he! Look at how he walks, and look at how he throws punches." Yeah, so and then I got a chance when I was still an amateur. Before I had my first pro fight, I got to spar with Montequia.
Oh wow!
And and it was just like, oh my God, it was just like, I was an amateur. I was scared to death. And I was like moving and move. I was throwing 1,000 punches a second just running around. And he was just. It looked to me like he was moving in slow motion. So I thought I can hit this guy all day, and you couldn't hit him. And then he'd be right in front of you, hitting you with his short shots. It was just hurt you. I did 3 rounds with him, and I was supposed to go 6, and I went 3, and my trainer pulled me out. He said, "Okay, that's enough." So I said, "Okay, thank you." And then I went. This is the kind of guy he was. I loved it because I got to meet him because I got to see him after I won the title in London. I went to Mexico City, and I went to his. He had a nightclub, and I went to see him there. But when I met him after I sparred with him, they brought me over to him and they said, "No, this is Carlos Palomino, just sparred with you." And he goes, "Yeah, my wife hits me harder than he does." Oh man, that guy, I was so embarrassed, man. And then when I beat Tracy, and I went back, he called me up to the stage in his club. He had a neon nightclub, and he introduced me to the crowd, and then he gave me the mic, and I said, I'm gonna tell everybody the story of when I first met you. I said, "You remember when we first met?" And he goes, "What do you mean? Did we meet before?" I said, "Yeah, I sparred with you when I was an amateur. And when you were in LA, you were getting ready to fight Ernie Red Lopez. He was gonna fight Ernie Red Lopez." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah. Well, I went. My trainer took me there. I sparred with you 3 rounds." He said, "You did?" "Yeah." And then he told me that your wife hit harder than me. The crowd just went crazy laughing, and then he goes, "No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that." I said, "You did." I said, "It's okay." "It's okay." I said, "You embarrassed me enough that I went back to the gym and I gotta hit harder."
Wow.
Yeah. Hey, who do you regard as the toughest blood and guts fighter you ever saw?
The toughest what?
The all-time blood and guts fighter that you ever saw.
The
toughest guy.
Man, I've seen, there's so many of those kind of guys that.
Sure.
But the guy that really stands out to me because he's more current that I saw in the trilogy with him and Arturo Gatti.
There you go. That's my guy.
That kid was just tough as nails, man. And he just was not the kind of guy that you could make. I mean, it was just incredible because I see guys now, and I've seen guys sit on their stool and just quit because they're tired or they're getting hit too much. Not Arturo Gatti, man. And what's his name that fought him?
Mickey Ward.
Mickey Ward, same thing. Those two guys. But I saw Gotti fight, some other fights where that's just the way he was.
Yeah.
Of all the guys you've ever known, which one would you want as your wingman in a parking lot fight?
in a party? Did you say?
In a parking lot fight.
Oh, in a parking lot. Yeah, that would be Armando Muñiz.
Ah, really?
Oh, man.
yeah, because you could hit Armando with the ring post and not hurt him.
That's a good wingman.
Armando wrestled in high school and in college, so Armando had no neck. His head was attached to his shoulders.
Hard to snap a head back like that.
So that would be my guy, but
yeah, I'll have to tell him you said that next time I talk to him.
Yeah.
Hey, Carlos, I'll get a big laugh.
I just saw him. I just turned 70, and I had a 70. My kids gave me a really nice party. My youngest daughter owns a sports bar at Huntington Beach, so she closed it out, and my whole family was there, and invited all my really good friends. Armando was there, Armando Muñiz was there, Ernie Red Lopez. Little Red was there.
Danny.
John Montes and Henry Moore, his brother. Edward James almost came. So a lot of my high school buddies came from way back when I was in Westminster High School. It was just an amazing party. So Mondo was there, and I got a chance to hang out with him. And after my daughter, they brought the birthday cake out and made a little statement and gave me the mic. So I called Armando up and we had a little conversation about our fight and everybody just loved it,
Yes. Yeah, Armando's a great guy. Hey, this is a question I want to ask you for a long time. And you mentioned this guy already a few times. Was Roberto Duran the best fighter you ever fought in your career?
Yeah, it was him and Wilfredo Benitez were right there. Benitez defensively was a really kind of a genius. It was almost like he had a sixth sense. I have to go with Roberto because I thought I beat Benitez and didn't get the decision in his hometown. But and he'd also. I don't know what would have happened with Roberto in a 15-round fight because when I fought Duran, I was coming off fighting 9 straight 15-round fights, and we were supposed to fight a 12-round fight. It was supposed to be an elimination fight, and then Benitez signed the fight right letter, so they cut our fight to a 10-rounder, he was as hard to hit as Benitez, and he was a much better puncher. And also, I was just really surprised at how quick he was on his feet, in and out. I thought I knew I had seen him fight at the lightweight many times, and I thought he would, he was slowed down a little bit moving up to welterweight, but he didn't. It was just he was amazing. His speed, you know, this not only his hands but his feet, you know, it just kept moving in and out, angles. So he kept me surprised through the whole fight, you know, and he kind of just out hustled me in every round. But
he did that to a lot of guys, Carlos. So
Yep.
Hey, how about nowadays? Do you have a favorite fighter to watch these days where you say, okay, I'm not going to miss? I'd love to watch this guy fight.
Yeah, you know, this young kid, Garcia, Ryan Garcia, I love to watch. Yeah, you know,
Golden Boy.
I think it needs a little work. I mean, and right now I think he's got the right trainer. He went to Canelo's trainer. Because I met him before he had his first pro fight at the Joe Goosen gym. Actually, Joe, they had his parents had taken him to the gym because they wanted to see if Joe would take him on as a trainer, and he did. The kid's a little cocky. He thinks, you know, he had over 300 amateur fights and he only lost one, and so he wasn't listening too very closely to Joe when he was training. Joe was trying to tell him, hey, you know, I want you to do this, and he was just, no, this is how I do it, you know. And his mom and dad was just standing there going, oh God. And I met him, and I met his parents, who are very involved in his career because they're involved in the amateur program. Both his parents. And then, you know, Joe just said, you know, Joe's not that kind of guy. You know, if you're not in his program, you know, Joe said, hey, you know, go find somebody else. That's the kind of guy Joe Goosen is.
Yeah.
So, you know, he told him hey, if he wasn't going to listen, he better go find somebody else. and so he's been moving around. Now he's with he tends to be a little wild at times, you know, but he's got, I think once he settles down and he, especially now with the guy that he's working with, I think he's going to be an exceptional champion because I think he'll win a world title and maybe a couple. Because he's only 135. He's a tall kid for that weight. I mean, he's almost like Oscar De La Hoya, 5'11", 135 pounds. And so I know he'll move up in weight and maybe win a few titles. I really like what he does, and I like his attitude a lot.
What do you think of Vasily Lomachenko?
Yeah, that's another incredible guy. You know, he's just you know, I think he can be hit, but you have to be able to move with him. You know, and so far, no one's been able to find, you know, to get the keys or how to do that. You know, I watch him. I say, yeah, if you just move with him, you can hit him. You know, and you know he got hit a lot. His last fight, you know, he was kind of bruised up. So he can be hit. So you know, I don't know at his who he doesn't have that competition though. You know, I mean, right now all the competition is at the welterweight division. So yeah, it's just amazing. I every time I mean, I'm not working with any kids right now, but I keep thinking, yeah, I think I would do what his dad did. You know, I would let a kid train a kid for a couple of years, then set him down, and then send him to a dance school, and then let him dance for 2 years. Yeah. and then come back to boxing. Yeah, I mean, because he's just incredible footwork, you know. Because he took those, I don't know, those I don't know what the Russian dance classes, or I mean, we have a great Mexican dance there that I think fighters should go study for a couple of years and get that footwork working the way he does. It's amazing.
Yeah, man, I wouldn't want to get in a fight with Baryshnikov, you know.
Hey, Carlos. I remember this when you won the title so well. You won the title welterweight championship for the world when you stopped John H. Tracy in 1976. That you said at Wembley Arena in London, and it was really interesting. You were talking about how you learned how to sit down on your punches and throw more power shots, but your body work won you that fight. And I've been curious, who taught you to throw that wicked hook to the liver?
Yeah, that was actually both my Tony Cruz and Jackie McCoy were partners in my contract. And they both worked with me, and they worked together really, really well. So Noe, we started doing that body work with the pads, and Jackie would stand. Noe would be in the ring with me, and Jackie would stand outside the ring on the ropes, and just say, okay, let's just do this, do that, and he would he put in his 2 cents, and together they worked together really well, and there was no egos as far as who was doing the training, and so we worked on that left hook to the body a lot, and actually it was really weird, because when I was a kid, my dad would always make my brother and I put gloves on. He always had boxing gloves in the house, and if there was any trouble between us, he'd say, "Oh, yeah, go put the gloves on, and you guys can settle it that way." So I in my party, my older brother was there, and actually this is true. I told the guy, there's my brother right there, my brother Sam. I had more sparring rounds with him than anybody else in the world. Because because my dad would put the gloves on us, and I remember, and he knew a little bit, because he watched a lot of fights, and he if he had a chance, he probably would have been a fighter himself. But he was in a ranch, as a kid growing up, he just didn't have the opportunity. But he would watch fights, and then he would work, try to teach us what he learned from just watching fights, And I remember the first time I sparred before I went in the Army, I sparred with a guy that was training to defend his junior Olympic title. There was a junior Olympics. He was like 18 or 19 years old, and they made me. They asked me if I could spar with him. And as soon as I got out of the ring, the coaches were like, "Hey, man, you're a natural. You should do this." And the thing that just came natural to me was to throw a hook. And, I just threw it just naturally. And so when Noe and Jackie saw that, they just started working on making it more precise and, and learning how to use it and, how to be able to develop the ability to step in and throw it at the right time. And so that's what we worked on, and also perfecting that hook, so I could get the twist and the turn and the shoulder behind it, the hips behind it, and make it be effective.
Yeah.
Talking to Hall of Famer.
The moderator has left the conference.
Ringside Boxing Show. A lot of people right now are really impressed with this generation of heavyweights, with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz at the top. But you won your title in '76, and I want to remind fans of what the heavyweight landscape looked like when you won your welterweight crown. In March of 1976, this was the Ring Magazine's heavyweight list. Their champion was Muhammad Ali, and the top 10 contenders were Ken Norton, Jimmy Young, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Ron Lyle, Ernie Shavers, Dwayne Bobbitt, Joe Bugner, Chuck Wepner, and Randy Newman. How does that era stack up with this one?
Oh my God, you serious, man? And I just feel somebody just posted on Facebook that fight between George Foreman and Ron Lyle.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
my
favorite.
Oh,
Dear Sixter.
Yeah. Oh my God. I rewatched that, and I didn't remember these two guys almost killed each other in this fight.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can compare. I mean, because what do you have? You got like 4 guys now that you could maybe mention on that same list. Yeah, that's it. You know, back then, yeah, it's just really amazing. I mean, you know what? I think that boxing now boxing has a lot of competition when it comes to drawing athletes, you know, to the ring. And I think we're losing a lot of athletes that in the past maybe would have come to boxing that are now, you know, playing soccer or playing football, playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much, you know, that is drawing kids away from boxing that in the past, the fastest way to try to get out of, you know, because you know, most fighters come from, you know, really low-income areas. And so the quickest way to out of that was through boxing, you know. And I think we're losing a lot of those athletes, you know, to other sports now.
Yeah.
What kind of shot do you think Oleksandr Usyk has as a heavyweight against these guys who are 6'9", 6'7", 6'6"?
Who's that? Which fighter?
Oleksandr Usyk. I mean, you know, he's probably the closest thing to Ali we've got right now. Yeah.
He moved up from cruiserweight.
You know, you know what? I haven't seen him fight, so I couldn't really tell you.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a good one for you, Carlos. I mean, the guys are you talk about guys, heavyweights are so much bigger now than they were back at that list in the 70s, you know, that Dennis just read, that great list. Do you think modern boxing might need a super heavyweight division? I mean, think about the history of boxing. I know you know this. Joe Louis weighed like 199 for years when he was champion, and then Rocky Marciano was 185, 188. Muhammad Ali was 210, 212, 220, right? Some of these guys like 6'8", 6'9", 250, 260 pounds. Do you think they ought to create another division for those guys?
You know, I in a way, I really feel like they should. You know, because I think that it's a big advantage. Even though, man, you know, I'm just shocked that even at Andy Ruiz, you know, winning the heavyweight, you know, championship of the world.
Yep.
I mean, even though Andy, I mean, you know, he's like 260, but you know, but it's not muscle, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he looks like he's what, 6 feet, 6'1". I don't know what tall he is. And so I was shocked that he knocked out Joshua. And so when you see that, and you're thinking about, you know, people probably thinking about, you know, we should be creating a super heavyweight division, and then you see a guy like that come in and knock a guy out that's 6'6", you know, what 6'6", you know, 240.
Yeah.
Then they're like, oh, okay, forget about it, you know. So yeah, I just think that you know, guys are a lot bigger now, and there should be. I think there should be a super heavyweight division that maybe if you have guys that are, you know, 210, you know, 200, 210, somebody's gonna get hurt fighting a guy that's 6'9", you know, 260.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of moving up here, Carlos, Canelo Alvarez is moving up to 175 from the middleweight division, 160 to fight Kovalev. Who do you like in that fight?
You know, I think that Canelo could get hurt in this fight. I think this is one weight too many, one weight class too high for him. I mean, Kovalev is big. I mean, it's a big light heavyweight to start with. And now I mean, I don't know, you know, how Canelo is going to be able to put it at, I mean, I know his last fight was at 168. You know, I just don't know, man. I'm worried about him. I think he could get hurt. I think he'll get knocked out.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah, what about Is it surprising to you that Canelo doesn't seem to want a third fight with Golovkin?
Of course, I think he's lost 4 fights, and you know, and he, I saw just saw an interview with him where like, oh, why he's got nothing for me. I already beat him twice. He said, well, the first one was a draw, and that was a gift. But he said, I won. I already beat him twice. So so I don't think he wants any part of that fight. And even though, what I saw with Triple G in his last fight, I think Triple G has slowed down a little bit.
Okay.
I thought he lost that fight. I thought he lost a close decision. But so I don't know what Canelo's thinking. I mean, I unless he doesn't think he can get back down to 160, or it'll be too much work to get back down to 160. He knows, he knows that's too hard of a fight. I think, and I think he's got a lot of criticism from a lot of boxing fans, because I see it a lot that a lot of people, most people think he lost both those fights, and he got decisions, gifts, and he doesn't want to go back there.
Yeah.
I mean, for him to take
couple more questions.
For him to take this, okay. Yep.
Couple more questions for Carlos Palomino on the Ringside Boxing Show. Hey, every couple of weeks somebody tests dirty for performance-enhancing drugs nowadays. Last week there were 2, and one of them was Heather Hardy, a female fighter. This week there was another one. Were fighters of your day, do you think they were using performance-enhancing drugs? Was that kind of stuff even on your radar when you were fighting?
It wasn't. I mean, I remember a couple of fighters that at the Olympic Auditorium that were found out to be taking some kind. I mean, I remember watching a fight at the Olympic Auditorium, a 10-round fight, and I don't remember the name of the fighter, but he fought like no one had ever seen him fight before. I mean, he was just like a tornado. And then right after the 10th round, he was in the corner and he was still jumping around like he's still ready to go. And then all of a sudden, the ground on the mat, and they took him to the stretcher. They went to the hospital. I think they said they pumped his stomach, and he had taken bennies, back then, and they were like energy. I don't know, they gave him a little energy. He had taken some bennies right before the fight, and that was like the only thing I'd ever heard of. And then I didn't hear about enhancing type of drugs until I heard it through football. When what's his name, line that died because of all that. What was his name? He played for the Raiders.
Oh, Lyle Alzado. Yeah.
Yeah, Lyle Alzado, and that was the first time I heard of performance-enhancing drugs. And then you see it, and I see it. I mean, Canelo can say all he wants about tainted meat in Mexico, but you don't go from 147 to 168 and look the way he does without something. His body. I mean, he's a 5'7", maybe 5'8" tops, and to me, that's not natural. And so I think that there are some people who are experimenting with it, and now it's so sophisticated. I mean, I've heard that they have if they have these guys that are experts at giving it to you, at building using performance-enhancing drugs when you're training, and then the day or two before the fight, they have a way to hide it so that you don't test positive for it. So it's so sophisticated that who knows how many guys are using it.
Last one for you, Carlos, and I'm going to play something for you before we ask you this question, okay? Here we go.
One of the best things about coming to America was that I got to try American beers, and I tried them all. The one I like best, light beer from Miller. It's got a third less calories than the regular beer. It's less filling, and it really tastes great. That's why I tell my friends from Mexico, when you come to America, drink like beer, but don't drink the water.
Like beer from Miller, everything you always wanted in a beer, and less.
Well,
you got a story for us?
What's that?
You got a story for us about that famous Miller Light Beer advertising campaign?
Well, gosh, there's so many stories of hanging out with, when I did the group commercials, that was when it was, with all the guys, sitting on the table, hearing stories. It was just, I can't go there because it was just really crazy getting to meet and hanging out with legends of every sport, football, baseball, comedy. It was just amazing. And I always get a kick out of that commercial.
Great commercials. Yeah, we all love it too. Carlos Palomino is one of the best of all time. He's a member of the International Boxing Hall of Fame, class of 2004. He was also one of part of the best series of beer commercials in the history of television. And I hope you had as much fun today as we did. Always terrific to catch up with you, Carlos. Thanks so much, man.
All right, man. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Take care. The great Carlos Palomino on the Ringside Boxing Show. Hey, do you like this podcast? Do us a solid. Tell your boxing fans about us. Post the Ringside Boxing Show on your social media platforms and help us grow. Also, if you haven't yet discovered the best website on planet Earth for daily boxing news, you got something to do right this minute, something to add to your bucket list. We update ringsideboxingshow.com with the biggest news and most interesting stories 365 days a year. If you're a hardcore fan, this should be your first stop every single morning, and it might be the only site you need to visit all day. Discover us right now, and you will be amazed, guaranteed. ringsideboxingshow.com. We want to thank our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti for their weekly contributions to this show, along with our outstanding British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin. And another huge thanks to today's featured guest, International Boxing Hall of Famer, Carlos Palomino. And, of course, we thank you, Ringside Nation, for being a part of our worldwide audience again today. Keep your chin tucked, and we'll talk to you again next week on the Ringside Boxing Show.
Well, it's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off of my back. You might get cold cocked if you cross my path. It's a great day for me to whoop somebody's